Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
Larry Mondello guy checks in. I forgot to get to his good one-liner on Luigi. I'll maybe revisit that later. He writes, once again, a stellar mathematics performance from bumper to bumper, talking about how the Fox 9 Townball Tour giveaway item this year could be Dan's yardstick idea. Gaardsy and Dan speculated if he'd get a cut. As stated, it's a giveaway. So, sure, you can take 50%, Dan.
That was a stretch for Mondello guy.
Kind of,
there might be a
giveaway. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Giveaway.
We understand the business
is on the other end of it with the consumer, but that doesn't mean there might not be a monetary value attached to the act itself. If you say it gets sponsored or is part of a larger investment, who's to say?
Now, if we...
I mean, I'm not holding my breath.
No, but if we got a sponsorship agreement and we found out how much money Fox 9 was getting for it from an advertiser, and someone gave us that number and the percentage that you would get, we would not be able to convert that into total dollars. Mondello guy is right. We wouldn't be able to say,
yeah, you're right.
They're paying us this much, you get 10% or 5%. We would not be able to do that. To that, I plead guilty.
Where would you like to begin today's
Target
top 5?
Center.
Oh.
House of Pain.
Okay.
What did Flip want to call it? The Den? He wanted to call it the Den.
Yeah, the Den.
I was talking with Johnny off air because it's March Madness time and Izzo is back in it.
Yes.
27th straight year. I was thinking about...
Crazy, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. Yeah. But one of my favorite Flip memories is the year that Izzo was here to recruit Tyus Jones when Apple Valley won it his junior year.
I'm guessing we haven't even, in the history of the University of Minnesota basketball, we haven't been in the tournament 27 times.
No, I think the number's 11 officially, maybe 14 unofficially.
Including the Clem ones that got vacated?
Yeah.
And there's some Musselman. Was there ever a Musselman postseason tournament that got, or was there just a ban? I don't remember.
I don't remember. There were a lot of violations, I remember.
Back in those days, there weren't as many teams that got in either.
Right.
That was the other thing. Yeah.
It's not 27. I know the number's not 27.
Right.
But one of the best Flip stories, or one of my favorites, was when he picked up Izzo at the private airport, I assume, to take him to go recruit Tyus. And I was at the game. And so I went over to talk to Flip, and in like 60 seconds, he had 2 things that he wanted clear. Number 1, he was the guy that brought Izzo. Hey, you see I brought Izzo? Hey, you see I brought Izzo? And the second one, because it is March Madness, Izzo's in it, and Shaka Smart is taking on our guy Richard Pitino, Marquette versus New Mexico. He wanted it very clear to remind me that the Shaka Smart havoc pressure defense would not work in the Big Ten, as VCU that year got absolutely trucked by Michigan. I want to say that was 2013. Michigan made it to the title game. One of my favorite just goes, I told you that havoc stuff wouldn't work. That havoc stuff doesn't work in the Big Ten. It's like, I got it, Flip.
I forgot that one. I remember that story.
You're the NBA coach. I got it. I bring up Target Center for that reason, but also very different experience for Walker Kessler than the time that I watched him, I think, put up 22 and 21 or something a couple of years ago. The Rudy Gobert year, the first year, when the Jazz came in here and beat the Wolves. No such luck for Walker Kessler last night. He did have 15 points and 19 rebounds, but the Jazz didn't have much else going. Anthony Edwards scored 41, including 19 points.
In 3 quarters.
Yeah, exactly. The Wolves got off to a big start, big lead. Utah came back. Wolves extended it again, and that was it. 19 points in the game's first 8 minutes for Ant, including a dunk over the aforementioned Walker Kessler.
Nice one, yeah.
That put Minnesota up by 16. They end up winning by, I'm going to try to do the math, 26, 128 to 102. They're 40 and 29 on the season, now 20 and 14 at the Den, at the House of Pain, and have Indiana right back there tonight. The Wolves, though, still behind Golden State by percentage points because the Warriors won't stop losing either. Minnesota's won 8 in a row.
Yeah.
That's what I meant, sorry. And the Warriors have also won 7 in a row.
I think the Warriors are hosting Denver tonight. Denver is wobbly right now. I mean, they did beat Okie City the other day, but then we humiliated them.
Yep.
I think they lost to the Wizards. I think Denver just lost to the Wizards, if I'm not mistaken. So they're weird. They're not stopping anybody.
They did by 3
defensively. So maybe tonight
right
Denver gets something going. Yeah. Oh, it was at the buzzer?
2.1 seconds left. Jordan Poole hit a 3.
The beauty of last night was the obvious, that you took care of business in such a way that all your starters sat through basically the entire fourth quarter. So the notion that, well, we got back-to-back, even though they're both at home, there's no one that should be tuckered on this club against a better opponent tonight. The Pacers are a far more legitimate team, obviously, than Utah at this point. But that's the beauty of dispatching of Utah the way they did. Far better fashion than, remember, we lost to them last time around, and that was when the game Anthony Edwards had to sit because of the technical foul deal. I don't think he's had a technical foul since, by the way.
I don't think he has.
Which is also a good sign.
It's not till his second next one, right, that he'd be suspended again? They give
every two now means you're out again.
Period.
Yeah, you get one. Pacers are in the 5th spot in the East at 37-29, right on the Bucks' tail. Bucks are at 4 at 38-29, so that's quite gettable. Moving up higher than that is hard, because the Knicks are 42-24. Pacers will be a good opponent.
Yep.
But again, as we talked about briefly with Johnny Athletic, the Jaden McDaniels story is remarkable because he went from a guy who, in fact, if you go back to maybe one of the low points against Utah, in a game they actually won on the 30th of January, he played 31 minutes, was 1 for 4 from the floor with 4 points. And basically since then, he has taken off. Largely from that point, he's gone. I mean, look at the February scoring totals for him. 23, 22, there's a 30 in there, there's a 21, there's a 21, there's a 27. March, there's a 29, there's a 17, 16, 16, 11, and then 20. He basically, as we said earlier, he's had 9 games of 20 points or more, and he's never had that before, just in the last couple months. So let's be clear. If we're looking for ways for the Wolves to make things interesting in the playoffs, you got a different player here, right? We know Cat's not coming back. We know they still miss that. There's no question about it. So how do you deal with it? You compensate. Other people get better. And if he can sustain this kind of offense in which he is not just settling for outside shots, where he is slashing, he is getting to the basket and pulling up for 10-foot shots, sometimes dunking, going all the way to the basket. He gives them a completely different component.
He does.
And because we know what he's largely going to do defensively. The fact that you now don't look at it as, there's just another guy that they don't have to guard. Now, teams have to guard him, and they obviously still have to worry mainly about Edwards, which means there's only so much extra attention they can give him. But it's been a complete coming out party offensively for Jaden McDaniels, who I thought I saw almost grin at some point on the bench.
It is funny.
On last night.
It is funny how his expression just does not change.
No,
good, bad, or indifferent.
You're right.
It is wild. So that game tonight is on the Timberwolves channel of your iHeartRadio app. The Minnesota Wild are right here on the Fan. They got trucked by St. Louis Saturday 5-1. St. Louis trying to get back into the playoff mix, by the way. The Wild lead them by just 6 points now. Remember, 2 days ago, we were in pretty good position yet again?
I know.
Well, now it's tenuous. Now it's ominous. The Wild are in the first wild card spot with 79 points, so still some breathing room over Vancouver that has 73. St. Louis has 73 as well. The opponent tonight, the Los Angeles Kings, who are also themselves trying to stay in good playoff position. They are the 3rd team right now in the Pacific, and they could theoretically jump all the way up to 1. They're 5 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights, and certainly have their sights set on Edmonton, who's the 2 right now with 82 points. Gus Bus in the net tonight for the Wild. The game, Daniel, right here on the Fan.
Okay, that sounds good, and we need a victory. I think we'll all agree.
At least a point.
At least a point. Louis is a little concerned, and we talked about some of the scoring issues for this club that we know who's missing, okay? But that shouldn't be the crutch it's become for specifically Rossi and or Boldy, right? You can argue that even with the players they're missing out, that they're good enough or have been good enough that whether it's unfair or not, you now have a greater burden to be more effective offensively, and neither has been effective offensively at all in quite some time. So to stay afloat, to make things interesting, basically, I think you got to focus on those 2 players, don't you, Rossi and Boldy?
Those would be the 2. I mean, that's what they have left. Other teams know it too, unfortunately, so they're not letting it happen. What was your favorite Garrett Bradbury moment? It's official. The Vikings have released him. We got the word last week. They were going to explore some trades. Obviously, none came to fruition. And the former first-round pick who came here was supposed to be the savior. We're investing in a first-round center. We're doing it. Had some ups, had some downs. Probably most notable for when Kirk Cousins threw him under the bus for how sweaty his butt was at training camp. And that was an adjustment for our guy, number 8. And then Garrett Bradbury had to answer for that. Too bad. As Kirko was just trying to have some fun. We'll all remember that about Garrett Bradbury, will we not?
We will.
That he sweat quite a bit, according to the Vikings' former quarterback. But
maybe that he could never recover from the mental.
The tone was set
of all that complaining about his butt sweat.
The tone was set right there.
Yeah.
But once Ryan Kelly got here, he was seen as probably expendable.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's part of the attempt to get bigger and more physical at the line of scrimmage, which is nastier. I think Bradbury weighed like 180 pounds, which seemed light for me for a center.
He's listed as 300.
He is?
Yeah.
He doesn't look that big, does he? Or maybe I see him overpowered too much.
6'3", 300 pounds, according to the release that they sent out.
I apologize to Bradbury.
But does he need to be 320?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what the right weights
differently
are anymore. But I think it's fairly clear that they needed to attempt some upgrades. On paper, they've done that. We'll see if that pays off and who the new offensive interior line will be protecting. Will it be the kid or will it be Methuselah, Aaron Rodgers?
Well, we also know that they'll be blocking for another running back that I know caught your eye over the weekend. Did you talk about that in sermons yesterday?
We did talk about it yesterday.
Jordan Mason.
I like Jordan Mason. Good. You didn't give up much. Was it a 6?
Basically, the six that you got with Ed Ingram.
Exactly.
And you traded down, I think, 27 spots.
People say, well, why would you use a draft choice on a running back when there's allegedly like 50 good ones in the draft? Because we already know what Mason is.
We know who he is in the NFL.
He's a good runner, and I don't think he's being brought in to start, but it does give another. It takes away Jones having to be on the field as much. Every time I saw him run, I liked him. Now, he was hurt last season. And I don't know how injury prone he is, and I don't know why the 49ers are bored with him. I guess you could say, well, that might be a red flag. But as depth at the running back position, I'll take the sure thing. Then it also, to me, frees you up in terms of draft pick. You don't have to take a running back. Right. Maybe you still want to get some depth at some other positions, or you can go more with the proverbial take the best player available. That's okay, too, isn't it?
That's what I've been told.
We've got some history to discuss, some basketball history to get into. And we'll get to, so we haven't really talked about some interesting texts that have come in through the course of the show. We are guest free the rest of the way here on a program we call Bumper to Bumper.
Done.
Dan Winisoda reminds us that from his best-selling book, History of Heartbreak, sanctions included, and the 1972 NCAA tournament appearance was vacated. So apparently there was, so they were in the tournament. I don't remember what they did, but apparently whatever they did was vacated. We're used to that. Now that's Bill Musselman, right? 72.
Yep.
Got to be.
Yep.
Later, of course, it was with a couple decades later. It was Clem Haskins as well. Bradshaw and Bryant, the KFAN text line is open, and that number is 646-86. I had a text earlier about, speaking of history, see if I can find it. Dan, tomorrow, this is from Clayton in Rochester, marks 30 years for the Jordan I'm Back game. Were you lucky enough to be in Indianapolis for the game? I was. I convinced the bosses to spend that money. That was a challenge from time to time because they were in the mode of, well, that's kind of a national story. What do we care about? And I said, well, everybody cares about it.
It's Michael Jordan.
We should be able to represent ourselves there.
Did you tell him it was Indianapolis too?
That had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, that's probably what put him over the top.
So I did attend that game. And it was what you would expect. I mean, it was by then he's a spectacle. By then, I mean, you put that circumstance in today's social media world, I don't even know how to begin to describe how absurd it would have been, right?
Yeah.
But it was for them. For then, it was relatively absurd as well. Wasn't that like? So part of what he said convinced him to come back wasn't there a baseball strike then? Isn't that what part of what? I mean, he wasn't performing very well.
Yes,
but I think that was the excuse used at the time, right? Wasn't it?
That sounds familiar. Yes, that's why he was able to kind of go back and play, and he didn't want to be a replacement player.
No.
Right? Because, it was March 17th. So the strike, exactly right.
That's exactly
Because 94, the strike ended the season,
right? I
want to say. And then 95, it was still ongoing.
The best I'm back quote I've mentioned before comes from a player not as well known, although he was a very good, well-known football player, a running back, going back well before Michael Jordan. His name was John Riggins. I think Riggins is still alive, if I'm not mistaken. And Riggins played for Washington. I don't remember whether he had retired or he had walked away in some kind of a contract dispute. But when he came back, his declaration was, I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
Yes.
That's brilliant. That's if you only as an athlete utter one quote your entire career, that's a keeper. Because that's better than I'm back. Now, it's Michael Jordan, so anything he says, there's going to be a reaction to, and it was simple to the point. But I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back. Because you're kind of acknowledging, all right, I got haughty about how I needed more money, or I'm going to play on my terms. But at some point, Riggo, as he was called at the time, is kind of acknowledging, I'm a fraud. Yeah, I need the dough. I miss the dough. So he was a very, like I said, an outstanding running back. I think he started with the Jets. But then he was with Washington and had great success, including Super Bowl success, I believe.
He did. It was a training camp. It was a contract dispute, training camp 1980, July, when he left and returned 11 months later in the camp 1981.
That's it.
Yes, he's still alive, 75 years old.
There. Somebody has texted, did you ever buy the theory that Jordan actually was banned by gambling? That, in other words, he moved on to baseball for the period he did it just to until the smoke cleared on alleged gambling scandals. And there are some impressively embroidered conspiracy theories pertaining to the commissioner, David Stern. I don't believe that's what did it. I understand some of the speculation on it because his gambling history was very well known. In fact, you remember. That's another thing. We keep hearing these reports that, the players today get ripped, and Michael never got ripped, and Magic never got ripped, and Larry never got ripped, which, of course, is – and Jordan really early got ripped all the time because he was kind of viewed as a great pure scorer, but did he make teammates better?
The big box score.
Exactly right. So if you go back to you go back to that period of time – There was it was a Dave Anderson, who was a longtime Pulitzer Prize winning New York Times sports reporter, who this was during one of the playoff runs. He did a big story about how Jordan had been spotted at some casino till like 3 a.m. the night before a game or something.
Right.
It was a big scandal at the time.
Atlantic City, right?
That's it. And I mean, that got a lot of attention, and I think there was the feeling of, well, is there some more smoke here? Is there something else going on here with Michael that we're never going to get to the bottom of because the league can't afford to, given how invested it is in the Jordan brand? And I don't know. Maybe there's some stuff that got buried in that regard. I guess it's certainly possible. But the theory then was that's why he left. He retired. When he did the first time was, okay, I'll just leave till the coast is clear, and then enough time will go by, and then I'll come back, and nobody will be as concerned about that issue. But there was plenty of reporting on it. I think part of the reason Jordan, it didn't stick was he was too good. It's the old deal of, well, if the next game he had gone 2 for 17, or he had been known to struggle for long stretches of time.
Exactly.
You'd say, well, what's the deal? He's not till 3 a.m. the night before? A casino? What are you talking about? Hell, he was known to play like 36 holes of golf the days of games.
They just had that. Barkley, I just saw that story get replayed again in the Olympics, where he played 36 before a game and then guarded whoever the only good player was on the other team and absolutely destroyed him for 40 minutes. I mean, he's smoking cigars before shoot-arounds. It was those guys were just built different.
He's just,
and they were criticized, of course.
They were.
Like, one of the gambling things, he had to do the big sunglass interview with Ahmad.
Oh, that's right.
Now, again, Ahmad's his guy,
yes,
so it's
true.
friendly fire.
Yeah,
a little
it wasn't
bit
like Mike Wallace.
But there was at least enough going on that he had to address it, that he couldn't just let it go and had to do the interview on NBC. Yeah, he was absolutely criticized.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
It is funny what you remember. 30 years is crazy.
I remember criticizing him as a box scorer because, he had the 63-point game
against the Celtics
in Boston, and they lost the game. And part of that was unfair because he didn't have really people around him to pass the ball to, right? But again, the big change was when they fired Doug Collins, a very successful coach, and brought in Phil Jackson. That was the express purpose, was somebody's got to convince Mike that he's got to do things that make other players better. He's got to trust some teammate. We're going to get him better teammates. And ultimately they did, obviously with Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant and several others. But he had to be convinced to occasionally trust teammates, right? And that's ultimately what he did. He still, when the triangle offense broke down, it was still Michael going one-on-one. There's no question about that. It was a great, insurance policy, but that's what changed. But early it was, for me, it was spectacular. And I probably was unfair to him in expecting him to figure it all out in 15 minutes.
Right.
That was unfair about those of us who said, well, okay, this is great. He's spectacular, but how many games are they going to win? Are they ever going to break through? But Jackson did get through to him on that issue. That was the key. That was the crucial change that took place that allowed that team to become what it became, obviously, which was a title.
All time.
Yeah.
3 championships twice.
Three in a row twice. Exactly.
And in moments of truth, in both of those three-peats, he passed the ball to journeyman shooting guards who everyone remembers John Paxson against Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Everybody remembers Steve Kerr against probably Utah, right?
Correct.
It was amazing.
And Double T a couple times, not necessarily with the game on the line, but making some key shots.
I remember exactly where I was for the I'm Back game.
Is that right?
Oak Drive, Adam Stribling's house.
No kidding.
Sunday afternoon ball on NBC for a 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-old.
That's pretty good.
Does it get any better than that? I'm sure it was on at like 2:30. Bob Costas, I'm sure, was doing the game. It doesn't get any better than that. Watch the whole damn thing.
By the way, we are reminded that actually John Riggins had 2 outstanding quotes. The other one, maybe even got more attention, was "Loosen up, Sandy, baby." And the Sandy in question was a Supreme Court justice named Sandra Day O'Connor.
Oh, boy.
And I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was a party.
Excuse me?
That, but Riggins' quote was, "Loosen up, Sandy, baby." That also,
my God,
at the time did get, that's a pretty memorable, probably, unfortunate quote, but a very memorable quote. So I apologize to him. He had more than one. Those are 2. If you only have those 2, you put those on your tombstone, you're doing pretty good.
That's like Jeets asking Bill Clinton if he's staying out of trouble. You got to have some type of swag.
Very true.
But the I'm Back 30 years later, everybody uses it now still, right?
They do.
Even if they shouldn't.
The time,
it's probably stupid when they do. Yeah. Everybody knows exactly what it is. We all do it when we're having fun with our own versions of comebacks and things like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty epic. David Falk, his agent, puts the statement out, "I'm back."
Yeah, it was a fancy, I think it was a dinner in DC. And he might have had a couple cocktails.
Why not?
That particular quote got a great deal of attention for sure. All right, bottom of the hour pause. We're guest free the rest of the way. I want to ask, I guess it's a political question. I don't know that it should have to be a political question, but everything's political in 2024 as it pertains to your guy, one of your favorite guys, Gavin Newsome, who made news a couple of weeks ago. We'll get into a little bit of that. We will revisit our ongoing A-Raj watch, if there's anything new there. We'll give you a chance to comment on a story that appeared in The Athletic on Saturday that seemed to double and triple down on the belief that the stories indicating that the Vikings are considering Aaron Rodgers in 2025 are absolutely accurate, which is still not the same thing as saying it's going to get done. Stay tuned.
to your life. Ain't no need in you trying to deny it, girl. 'Cause you know I ain't telling no lie. I can tell by the look in your eye that the fire for him still burning you inside. Since he's been back, girl, things just seem to change. By the other night in your sleep, you even called out his name. I thought our love would last. Hey,
There are a number of people who believe that Gavin Newsome is already running for the presidential nomination in 4 years. And they think, is it fair to say he's got, physically speaking, he's got the look, right? He's a good-looking young man.
Outstanding what? BMI.
He does have, looks like a pretty good, damn good BMI.
Good BMI.
Full head of hair. I mean, I don't think we're in the mood right now to hire a bald president.
Unfortunately.
I think that's unlikely. And he also he's on he has started a podcast, right?
Yes, like everybody. He has his own podcast.
He's got his own podcast. In his podcast, the idea is I'm going to get out of my silo. I'm going to interview people that I disagree with, in some cases quite vehemently, but I'm going to prove that I'm one of those Democrats who's capable of, not running from other points of view and attempting to bring the Democratic Party to a certain extent, maybe a little bit closer to the center, even though he's pretty much been a progressive and a lefty. And one of the first things, well, I don't know if it was one of the first, but one of the things that got a lot of attention was he had, I don't remember the name of the blogger or the commentator. It might have been Charlie Kirk. I don't remember the name of the individual, but they talked, among other things, about the idea of trans athletes, where they should be allowed to participate and where they shouldn't. And Newsome made some news because he seemed to carve out a new position. I don't know that he'd publicly gone the direction that he did in this case, because in effect what Newsome said was trans athletes should not play, female trans athletes should not play in female sports, those who are trans athletes. That in his opinion, there is a fairness issue that should be, at the very least, a part of the conversation. Now, my cynicism about Newsome is whether this is really a new position or whether this is a calculated position that he feels he wants to take to make a point to perhaps put him in a better position to gain votes. I have never, I just don't, with Newsome, I always wonder about conviction with him. It's like the old, going to blow with the wind. Yep. I'm going to say whatever I need to say.
Where the political wind's blowing.
And that's,
here.
Of course, not, he wouldn't be the first, but,
nope.
but it makes me more skeptical about whether he had this come to Jesus moment on this issue, this epiphany, or that I'll pretend I had an epiphany. And what struck me was how repulsed, how difficult, I guess it was for several other Democrats, many of them progressives, to even consider his position. I'll give you an example. The former mayor of Chicago, Illinois. This is from Politico, did kind of a big piece on this. Newsome's move on trans athletes jolts the 2028 campaign. Some have blamed the party's position on trans athletes in sports for their poor electoral performance in November. Now presidential hopefuls face a choice. So they lay out his position, and there's a quote. The early quote is from Lori Lightfoot, who used to be the mayor of Chicago. It's disgusting. There are kids waking up today in California with this news, thinking that their governor hates them, and rightly so. A Democrat out of Washington urged Democrats to not take the bait and give in to their anti-trans people rhetoric, though she admitted that she had not seen Newsome's comments. Many LGBTQ plus organizations immediately made clear they're looking at trans athletes as a litmus test for ambitious Democrats. Our message to Governor Newsom and all leaders across the country is really quite simple. The path to 2028 isn't betrayed with the betrayal of vulnerable communities. It's built on the courage to stand up for what's right and do the hard work to actually help the American people. That's from the Human Rights Campaign President Kelly Robinson. They go on to write in the piece, to moderates, Newsom was offering a lifeline for a party plagued by the culture wars and the polarizing politics of trans women in sports. His comments were the latest from a field of potential contenders seeking to distance themselves from the identity politics of 2024. In fact, in recent weeks, your guy, Pete Buttigieg, the former transportation secretary, criticized some approaches to promoting diversity as responsible for how, quote, Trump Republicans are made, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker cited in a coming budget deficit for a proposal to cut a health care benefit for some non-citizen immigrants. Seth Moulton, sort of you could say, might have started this whole experiment because he was the one shortly, in fact, I think we quoted him at the time, suggested that some of these issues, culture war issues, he believed was partly to blame for the party's losses last year. True story is that we've seen in opinion poll after opinion poll that a majority of the country and Democrats agree with this idea. In this case, the idea being that transgenders should not participate in athletics or compete against those who are not transgender. More and more are willing to say what they probably always thought, and that's a good thing. So, again, what struck me is I think you should be able to have, first of all, by the way, it's not the majority on opinion polls. It's, in many cases, I've seen close to 80% of the country has said they have a problem with transgender participation in many sporting events. So that's not even like, that's pretty declarative, and that's pretty substantial. But what strikes me is the fact that some critics can't even stomach the position. Disgusting. Why is it disgusting? As we've said on this show before, everyone should be treated with dignity. And how many times have I said, if your pushback is you're giving oxygen to transphobes, and that on that basis alone, you can't take this more, I think, centrist position on this issue, then you're letting the terrorists win. There are very easy and effective ways to carve out distinctions here that say this is not a license to discriminate against, abuse, verbally or otherwise, those who are transgender. That everyone should be able to live with a measure of dignity. But this is one of those stories in which you should be able to say, well, this one's tricky because I think there could well be a fairness issue, even if and the comeback often is, well, what's the percentage? What are we talking about? And the percentage isn't massive, but we've cited studies, even from the United Nations, indicating the surprising number of events in results affected by this approach in which men who go transgender and then participate in women's events are, in many cases, able to dominate. It's not a difficult position to understand. The people who deny the advantages are making it up as they go along. They're not following the science. We're big on following the science until it doesn't serve our purpose, then we don't want to follow science. And science shouldn't be that difficult to figure out here about many of those advantages. Now, there are ways to try to lower the advantage. There's even some treatments in which there's an attempt to do that, but there is still a decided advantage. There was a preposterous, just an insulting comment the other day from your gal, Whoopi Goldberg, on this issue. Like, that seems kind of patronizing. I tell you what, some of these women, hell, okay, you're going to tell them they can't. It's like, this isn't a sisterhood is powerful issue. The issue here is that there are meaningful distinctions, and whether Newsom is doing it because he means it, or, which you would hope, or just for more political reasons, the notion that this is why we can't get anywhere, I don't think, politically on this particular issue, is we're talking about Gavin Newsom here, okay?
Right.
We're not talking about, for whatever you think of him, a far-right ideologue who's saying, and again, he may be doing it for more political reasons than honest reasons, but the position he's carving out, the idea that immediately it's, well, there's a lot of transgender, here it is, what was the vulnerable communities, built on the courage to stand up for what's right and do the hard work to actually help American people. You can't do that in a number of ways when it comes to transgender issues. And by the way, I think there's more than, as we've discussed, we've quoted some pieces that Posner has done and some others. Atlantic online, some very well done and well reported pieces indicating that there are a number of countries who've already followed suit with the fact that when it comes to children, when it comes to adolescents, the pendulum has probably swung too far, too easily in this country, and that other countries ahead of the curve have backed off on that because of concern that the original research that kind of opened this door wide is fundamentally flawed. I have no problem with folks in positions of authority saying when it comes to children, this should be again, you treat everybody with respect, but there may be limits to the kinds of surgery that we should do and how quickly we indeed do it. Most reasonable Americans, I think, do not find that position anti-trans. It's more, well, let's follow the science and let's be able to have these conversations. But if you immediately go, and I think you can continue, I think, to treat everyone with humanity and dignity and be against many forms of discrimination and say, well, here's where the rubber meets the road here. Here's where it gets tricky. Because there is potentially a fairness issue when it comes to the competition that we say is important. We think it's worth the time for athletes to compete. And for it immediately to be dismissed not as, okay, this is a position I disagree with, to disgusting. Kids waking up today in California with this news thinking that their government hates them. Is that what Governor Newsome is saying? There can be no nuance on this subject at all? Well, we've talked about it before. The answer is there's not much. I mean, there's on a lot of them, there's an inability to. I think part of Newsome's point, I guess this is where you have to decide. Do you want to win again? And we've talked about what this last election has wrought. We see it each and every day. And part of what I think the inescapable conclusion from somebody like Newsome is, I want to maintain my principles. I don't want to win at any cost, but I want to win. And if 80% of the United States, and I don't think 80% of America is transphobic, I don't. There's an element. Yeah, of course there's always going to be an element. Is it 80%? I don't think so. If the 80% say, well, this is, don't dismiss me because I'm going, well, this doesn't completely add up to me. If you come out with a story indicating that no, transgender men who become women and participate in female sports don't have potentially an advantage on the basis of how they were born and what they were born with, don't insult my intelligence with that. But because it's become political and become a game of who I'm trying to serve, then corners are cut and people try with a straight face to convince folks of stuff that, like I said, most reasonable people go, no, come on, man. Now, it's tricky because you say, well, you want everybody to be able to compete. So how do you try to accommodate everyone who attempts to compete? Is there a way to do that? I don't have all the answers to it. But as we talked about before, the idea that even opening the door that Gavin Newsome did, the progressive governor of California, is now taking, according to the former mayor of Chicago, a disgusting position, and that all kids should be scared. What purpose does that serve? And is that anywhere near as nuanced as what Newsome is actually saying? And if you don't care about that, you're telling me about your own agenda. And your own agenda is you're not really interested in having any kind of conversation about this and about the fairness issue. And there are a lot of women, liberal women, who've said, have we lost the thread on women's participation and fairness and Title IX, et cetera, about what we fought for forever?
We talk about Martina Navratilova a lot.
Yes.
She talks about this almost daily. saying exactly what you just say.
Exactly.
I don't think she's a raging righty, Martina Navratilova, correct?
No, not lately, unless she's been transformed.
Yeah.
But I think you can come off, in this case, she can come off as a righty, but that's because of this issue, and that's what's sad about it. I don't think it has to be a political issue at all, and I think you can be actual as lefty or classic liberal as ever and say, no, I'm the one being consistent. You have allowed whoever has got together in the Progressives Convention and said, you demonize anybody who even suggests that there's stuff to talk about here regarding sports. This is very specific. Sports participation, not equality of resources, et cetera, which is an entirely different thing. So, in any case, there we are. The proverbial, the obligatory text came in. It pretty much came in on time. Are we really going to criticize Newsom for putting his finger up to play the political wind? Think about Trump. Are we really going to hold every other politician to the traditional standards while Trump has been rolling without any standards at all? Respectfully, I'll say to, let me get the area code, 218 guy. This is also part of the reason we can't have conversations. Today, I'm talking about a specific story. Gavin Newsom and reaction to a far left California governor trying to stake out a more reasonable, as far as I'm concerned, more reasonable position on this issue. That doesn't let Donald J. Trump off the hook. I've got texts every day from people, even from earlier today, mad at me for the things I've said and continue to say about Trump. So don't do the either-or game. That if for this 15 minutes of a show we do 3.5 hours every day, I'm making the emphasis someone else, that means, well, you don't talk about, what about that other stuff? We're allowed that's the beauty of doing a show 5 days a week.
Got time for a lot of it.
Is that we got time to get to absolutely all of it. But you, again, tell me where you are if you can't see past the larger issue, that you can't see past that to have a reasonable conversation. Because what you'll notice is he's not having the conversation about this particular story. I hammer all politicians when it comes to the issue of how much do I trust the position that a new position that they've taken. In this case, we're talking about this particular politician. That's why it's germane to this story. That doesn't mean we haven't talked previously and in the future about other politicians who seem to stake out new positions for the wrong reason. But that's part of why we, again, really have no chance to get anywhere, because 218 guy is, what about Trump? We know. We spend pretty much every time we talk to Kessler about almost as much of it as we possibly can.
The week in Trump land.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not surprising. His latest one, the newspaper coverage, got to be illegal. He's decided that it's illegal. It's the asinine position that his followers will eat up. They will absolutely love. Not the same thing as saying, was coverage biased? No, he's saying it's illegal. Just make stuff up. He has really no interest in any amendment. He also, his administration, what did they just do also? They had sent some alleged gang members out of the country.
Oh, right.
A judge ruled you got to bring them back. And they said, oh, sorry, too late. We're already over international waters. So that's going to be the next bridge, is how often are they just going to ignore judges' rulings? That's the bigger concern moving forward. We have plenty of time to get to that, and we have. But today, it's this issue. And on this issue, progressives' inability to speak with anything other than hyperventilation is, I think, part of the reason you're sitting there having to tolerate Donald J. Trump as president of the United States. It couldn't be clearer. And you'd like to think that a little bit of humility would come in after you lose, and all the polls indicate a very nuanced position on this issue among voters, and you go, disgusting. Not just I disagree with the position, just disgusting position. And that tells me, like I said, for a certain wing of the party, nothing has changed. It's just it's just sharks and jets, and this is our position on this, and there's no other place to go. Top of the hour pause here.
And when we come back, did tonight's showdown game against the Indiana Pacers become loser-proof?
Fan.
I wonder if you're headed to the Wolves game tonight, excited about the team's, the franchise's resurgence, right? Remember as we hit the trade deadline?
Yeah.
I certainly believe, man, if you could do something, go ahead and do it. It's just, there just doesn't seem like there's an ennui involving this club. They're not horrible, but they're kind of semi-treading water. And now look at us. 8-game winning streak, injured players back healthy, each of them coming back with a renewed spirit, commitment to the bit. Ball is moving all over the place. Greater unselfishness than we've ever seen. Nobody's thinking about Karl Anthony Towns right now except Draymond Green. And you're saying, I want to get in on this because the team hasn't been all that effective at home, but now they're in the middle of a 5-game homestand. The reports I had were that the atmosphere for the last 2 home games has been outstanding.
Yep.
And this game yesterday was kind of a blowout, but still, there's we want to revel in that we're back, that something substantial might be going on here, and that we might still be able to save this season. And you're saying, so I'm going to the Pacer game tonight.
Can I raise my hand as that person?
Good. You went to both games?
Well, no, whole family's going tonight.
They're going tonight.
We're feeling it.
Good club.
Haven't been able to go for a while. Nice Eastern Conference matchup. We're going. We wouldn't miss it.
Well,
what are you trying to tell me?
We're trying to tell you that will it be as much fun to win by 30 or 20, given the fact that the Pacers will sit 4 of their 5 starters tonight?
What do you mean?
According to Alan Horton, Halliburton, Siakam,
oh no,
Turner, and Naismith are all out.
James Naismith?
No, Aaron.
Oh.
Back, personal on Siakam, hip on Turner, ankle on Naismith, plus 2 bench players, Isaiah Jackson, Achilles, Johnny Furphy, illness. So...
Do we need to give him Luka just to field a roster tonight?
You tell me how it's going to work. I mean, it's not the Wolves' problem. I don't know how much of it is load management abuse. We'll find out. Utah just got fined $100,000?
Yep.
So maybe they're following protocol. Maybe did the Pacers play yesterday? They did, didn't they, last night?
Did they play Philly last night?
Double check the Pacers.
I didn't think they did.
I thought they played yesterday. I could be wrong. But whatever the case may be, this appears... Now, I won't say... I mean, look, the Pacers play hard. Pacers are a team that compete pretty much every night. So I get it. You can't necessarily assume, but that's pretty substantial when you're having 4 of your 5 starters sit tonight. And I don't know...
They played Saturday night in Milwaukee.
Oh, it was a Saturday night. Okay,
yeah, they didn't play yesterday.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was Saturday night. So they didn't even play last night. So I don't know what this is about. But for you guys, it might take a little bit of the luster out of it. On the other hand, everybody might be able to frolic. You might get to see all of the Wolves bench tonight as well. And we're seeing more and more of that because Finchie's playing more like 9.5 guys, which I like as well.
Well, hopefully tonight's one of those nights where, you know how I always get ripped for leaving the games early with my kids? Tonight is a school night. It's not ideal to be taking them on a Monday. But, we haven't been able to go for a while. There's not that many home games left. So why not go watch the Pacers? Hopefully they don't mess around, and hopefully we can leave in the third quarter and not feel that much guilt about missing the outcome. Siakam's 39 minutes the other night. Halliburton, 37 minutes the other night. Nesmith, Turner, both over 30 minutes as well. So they lost to the Bucks by 7.
To Milwaukee. And then Milwaukee got killed by Okie City yesterday.
With Michael Grady on the call. And
you're right. Oklahoma City was missing 2 starters, and it doesn't matter with them. They're good. I really like watching them play, in part because they don't seem what you classify as, superstar laden in the sense that they all have household names.
Right.
But my God, they compete. They're well orchestrated. Defensively, they are easily the best team in the league. And they're extremely entertaining in that sense. I'm not discouraging you from going. I'm just trying to give you information that is worthy of our discussion to just sort of update the story. because I don't know until a little while ago how many people knew that the Pacers were going to be. Maybe in Pacerland they knew all along they were going to be missing a bunch of people, but that's substantial. And look, the Wolves are trying to keep pace with the Warriors, who play later tonight. The Warriors, I think, are hosting Denver.
They are.
Unless Denver's sitting a bunch of people, a tougher matchup, one would think. Golden State, sooner or later, you think might slip up.
Tomorrow night, they have the Bucks as well.
They do, okay.
So they have a back-to-back.
Denver's weird in that they've been really up and down lately. They're not particularly deep, but they still have, obviously, Joker and a couple of other pieces. They know how to play. So that could be, you enjoy a loser-proof victory for the Wolves tonight, and then you go home and maybe you turn on and get a couple of minutes of the team that we're trying to chase. Well, we are chasing, but we're trying to pass by because we continue. We can't get past them because they're as hot as we are.
So we can wake up in the 6th spot.
Correct.
Tomorrow morning, we could wake up and have the 6th spot all to ourselves, staring down the Los Angeles Lakers.
A couple, yeah, that's true. Is LeBron ever coming back?
Well, I don't know.
How long is he going to milk?
Yeah, he's sitting out with the groin. Did you see the videos of him over the weekend?
Yes.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, you can't make that up.
He's like high-stepping on the sidelines like he's playing for Sierra Canyon.
That's true.
I don't know if that's where Bryce goes, but that's where Bronny went.
Even Luka, even trash-talking Durant, he's ruthless. By the way, Durant did not look very committed to the bid. Maybe we have to rethink my Durant obsession. We'll see. I guess, I'm teased to the positive about what we've seen with the group now. But let's see where it ends. There's a lot of things that we can reconsider in the off season. But Phoenix is just a disaster. This is from Chris. Such a troll. Start the show chastising us about Aaron Rodgers as a story, and you'll talk about it. Then go 3+ hours without mentioning it. Exactly why I love this show. Well,
wow, he's hanging in.
He's hanging in, although that's not exactly accurate because we did talk about it with Johnny. It was late. You're right. And then was there one other time I thought we got into it? I'm not sure. I think we've talked about it. Now, we haven't talked about it for 3.5 hours. I never intended to talk about it for 3.5 hours. The deal is when there's something new to tell you, I will. But I'm not going to back away from it because people are seemingly repulsed by the story. That was the point I was trying to make. We're going to stay with the story until it is indeed resolved. Back to the Gavin Newsome story. You're taking the easy position and making it about sports. Pretty much everyone agrees boys who go through puberty have an advantage in girls' sports, but that is not the Republicans' argument. Republicans argue now it's a mental disorder. Trans people should be kept away from children, kept away from girls' sports, kept away from the military. Do you not see where it's going? Man, I don't know. You and I are just not going to be able, I guess, to have the conversation that I'd like to have. Because you're doing precisely what I say makes it impossible to even have the conversation. I'm not taking the easy position. I'm taking the position, a very narrow position, on this particular issue. And I couldn't have said, how many times I say it? When it comes to discrimination, dignity, letting people be who they want to be, that should be the starting point of all of this. So that's not me acknowledging that on that part of it. But what he's doing away is, no, he's taking the easy position. He's prohibiting any kind of sane conversation about this aspect of it, which we are allowed to do, and which the governor of California has done for a specific reason, by saying, yeah, but aren't you aware of the larger ramifications? Yes, we can't do both at the same time. Using his logic, we should not talk about this. We should be criticizing Gavin Newsome for staking out the position he is, because don't we see what that unleashes? I would say again to the texter, don't you see why this is precisely the reason we can't have intelligent conversations about anything? Because the minute we try, instead of you arguing the position itself, you broaden it and you make it about something bigger. I'm saying adults, most Americans, I believe, can do both at the same time. You're the one eliminating that possibility. You're taking the easy position. Because your position is we can't ever have any conversation about any of these specific issues because of the larger ramifications of it. We're doomed. We have no chance. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe move to Bulgaria. Is Bulgaria still a country? Let's find out.
As far as I know.
Let's find out during the break.
Show Wrap is brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
All right, so no Louis tomorrow because Louis joined us today, second straight week, because of some scheduling. I think he said he was flying to Los Angeles tomorrow. So Louis joined us today it's about like 4:15 and 4:40, and a good conversation that ended up being part of, I think, segment 2. The question of, is there ever a good way to fire someone in the public eye? Louis, once upon a time, was in that position. He was general manager of the North Stars. And he had some interesting things to say about it. The context is the ongoing debate, which I think has gotten way overcooked, over when and how is the proper way to dismiss Ben Johnson, a guy who's going to walk away with a check, for over $3 million. Now, I know about dignity. I know about he's still human. But it's been a curious. There's curious momentum on something that I think, for whatever reason, we end up getting obsessed with in this town and missing the overall. When I think there's not a meaningful difference. I got texts then from people saying, "Well, no, there's just a right way to do it." And then I say, "Well, okay, give me the parameters.
What are your options?
What is the right way you're talking about? What would have been the right way? Waiting 5 more hours?" Somebody else said, "Well, it's pretty clear he knew he was going to fire him. He should have told him 2 weeks ago." Well, how often does that happen before they're done with the season? Then that gets in the way of whatever they're trying to do. That doesn't make any sense.
That's not fair to the players necessarily.
It's not. It's just the whole thing has been overcooked from the beginning. But we also eventually talked wild with Louis, and then we got back into the Hockey Hall of Fame controversy, which is ongoing. Star Tribune had another interesting story, Dateline Duluth, on that. And then also Johnny Athletic joined to talk primarily Wolves. We did eventually get to some Aaron Rodgers stuff with him as well. Wolves will be on the Timberwolves channel tonight, correct?
Yes.
Wolves Pacers. And the Wild will be on the Fan. Must win tonight against the Kings. I guess there's no such thing with the position they're in.
Must point. They need at least 1 point every game.
Yeah. No, they got one the other night.
Yeah.
You're right, in the position they're in. I guess is there any reason to believe we can actually create the sort of semi-buzz that the Wolves are now creating and carry that forward to make you feel like,
no,
as we bring the reinforcements back, we can get somewhere? Apparently not.
They had that buzz 3 months ago.
They did, completely.
When they were rolling.
Absolutely.
When everybody was healthy. And then we said, they'll be able to hang if some injuries come up, which they always do. We'll see how they do it. And the injuries have come, and they've come, and they've come, and they've come.
Yeah.
They've even gone down to Fort Myers for Royce Lewis. We talked about that, too.
Well, yeah, and we did. And he's, we don't know how long he's out for, but he's not going to be there for the season opener, which is just
10 days away.
10 days away.
Yep.
What else today? We talked a little bit of Big Dance early in the broadcast. Tomorrow, then, will be... Well, right now, are we guest-free? With Louis out.
Louis out.
Seifert, maybe? What do we want to do?
I think Seifert's always a good idea.
Yeah. With
what's been going on and what's happening. And what happened over the weekend.
In all honesty, I don't... And I wanted to talk to you about the Athletic story that dropped, I think, Saturday. That was 3 bylines.
Yeah. So that's Silver, Rossini, and Alec?
Your guy, Royce Lewis. No, Alec Lewis. That's right. Royce Lewis, that'd be a hell of a story.
Alec's hammy is intact, I think.
That's true. Or Royce White. I don't know. Somebody. Because they doubled and tripled down on it. The belief that basically everybody's waiting for the Vikings, that it's up to them, and that they are thinking about it and talking about it. So we'll maybe revisit that tomorrow. Maybe we'll get to some Seifert stuff tomorrow. And then who knows what else might be in the hopper. Review Wolves and Pacers, loser-proof. I've already declared it. And I can't declare any Wild game loser-proof at this point, can I?
I'll see if
Even
we can
against the Gophers, I don't think so.
We'll see if we can get Patino in the next day or two. I would imagine they're leaving Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
So maybe I'll see, depending on what practice is at the pit or their practice facility, because they play Friday in Cleveland. I've got like the This Is Your Life Nico Medved lineup ready to go if and when that hire gets announced. Everybody that's ever worked for him or that he's worked with.
Right.
We've got plenty of Nico Medved backgrounders and primers for the show when that happens.
Do we?
Well, yeah. I mean, Tim Miles, he worked for forever.
Oh, that's true.
In Colorado
That's a good
State.
point. Yeah,
so
you're right. I forgot about that.
That's locked in.
Yeah.
Well,
the problem now is, what if you can't hire them till they're eliminated? One would assume, right?
I mean, I think you can come to an agreement, but yes, other teams can presumably call him too if they want. What if they go on like a Sweet 16 Elite 8 run and your alma mater wants him?
Yeah, well, that's because Indiana hasn't filled it. Has Iowa gotten hired Drake guy yet?
No, but that's the rumor.
The rumor is that's the way they want to go. That's why they got rid of Franz Redface. Should we be considering Franz Redface?
He's a good coach.
He's old by current standards, right? 65?
Dunkers would probably like it, though. I'm
guessing he had a nice buyout, too.
I think it was $4 million.
Oh, 4? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 4. I think he's going to go to his alma mater, Penn.
Oh,
because they have an opening.
Oh, is that right?
That would be a nice
So you don't think he's done?
I think he still wants to coach.
Yeah.
All these guys want to coach.
Yeah.
I think most of them just want to coach.
Well, it didn't
especially the older guys.
Yeah, you might be right. Well, except for those who don't, who say it's too weird now.
That's true.
Because of, all the changes.
That's true.
Yeah, there's some of that, too.
Is there a guy in his element more than Richard Pitino's father at the moment?
Oh, my God. It's astonishing.
Every press conference is zinger after zinger.
That's astonishing.
Cheap shots.
Yeah.
I'm going to drink a quart of Jameson. Yeah. And everyone's just eating out of the palm of his hand.
He said it. I mean, I think the reason he's on this natural high is he's thinking, I didn't know I'd ever have this chance again. I mean, he seemed at one point buried. And it's a testament to you wait long enough and you're good enough at what you do, whether you should have another major opportunity, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. It's just, if you're really good at it, some schools say, enough time's passed by.
Yep.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors there about what took place, so we're going after it.
Oh, and right? Iona was the one that just took the chance, right?
Yes, that's where it started.
And then he's obviously at St. John's now.
Yeah.
I remember doing the coaches show with Richard, and he would say it all the time. He said something along the lines of, my father is coaching in Greece right now. I mean, people forget he was exiled. He literally went to Greece to coach at least one season.
That's a good point.
Maybe two.
That's right.
He didn't just sit around. He went to Greece.
You're right.
And coached some random team in Greece, I think to a championship, because that's what he does. But this is clearly what you talk all the time about, what gives people oxygen and sustenance and everything. This is what he lives for. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Fan and Demand first before Wild and
15
Kings,
minutes.
is that correct?
Yep, and then Kevin Fallness at 6:45.
That's outstanding. Well, there's really nothing else I have for today other than...
Here's Russo, by the way, for the Wild.
Oh.
He's hearing Marcus Foligno may not be able to play tonight with an upper body injury.
No.
That's 2 minutes ago.
It was a really, really smart penalty that I know the extremely popular, we're not allowed to rip Foligno, committed when we had cut the lead to 3-1. We weren't going to win that game. I get that. 3-1, he gets into it, immediately commits a penalty. I'm sorry. Foligno, for me, still has too much of that in him. I know he does a lot of other things, but I don't understand why he gets a free pass on stupid penalties. I mean, in all seriousness, how do you help your hamstrung, limited, no margin for error team? Now, he claimed it's because he got tripped first, so what do you do? I got to trip him back. And guess what the referee saw?
The retaliation. The second guy.
It makes no sense to me. It's just a bad penalty. And just because he's a good guy, that doesn't mean he should, that means we can't criticize him. Because he does that. He did that at the playoffs as well. I'm sorry to the hockey community. I hope Fallness is not offended. But when you're the ambassador, there's certain responsibilities.
You have standards.
You can't shirk.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
A lot of things that are easily correctable.
Well, it's lumpy. I'll be there.